So hi everyone, this is Dr. Alana James, and today we're talking about this kind of change in job market, Change and it's the similar networks. We've always talked about how you needed them in order to boost your careers, but now it's a bit more difficult, perhaps. We'll talk about that. You'll come away with some clear steps that should help you build your remote network. So our agenda is to reflect on who you want to get to know and why. And then to go into how you connect with them, some basics about that, and this is the most important thing that we'll hopefully also have a chance to get to the video on. We'll reflect on what you have to offer them. And all the way through this, our conversation at the end will be guided by www.wooclap.com/grad excellence. So I will sign in there right now just to see if anybody has already posted a question I should know about. And always useful when you're signing in if you spell things correctly. There we go. Grad excellence. Don't have any questions. So anytime during what I'm talking about, if you have a question, put it up. We'll look there at the end to make sure all of you have the answers you need when you leave. Once again, it's really glad to have you here. All right, so we have to start by reflecting on who it is we want to get to know. And we're going to do that by building out on some ideas that we'll talk about next month, even in more detail, about mentoring. So when I thought about it, what's the difference between looking for mentors and building a network? Well, building a network, I'm building a lot of people. I'm seeing a lot of things, and some of them will pay off. If you're not familiar with the research of a man called Granvetter, I think Granvetter, he 15-20 years ago did research on what it takes to get a job. And what he said, basic finding, was you don't get jobs from people that know you well. You get jobs from people who know you a little. And he called those weak ties. So if you did a search on weak ties, you would find his research, I'm sure, and everybody else that's come after it. It is, in fact, the research on which LinkedIn was built. So you need a lot of people who are weakly connected to you, so that when you put out the fact that you're looking for something, you can get ideas of where those job opportunities are. That said, the video we're going to see at the end reminds us that the quickest way to get a job is to have someone in the corporation or university or whatever recommending you. And a recommendation takes a little closer than a weak tie. So somewhere in this mix of I know you a little, I know you a lot, is the sweet spot you're looking for. And so a lot of people, and the most important thing I have to say to you today is that it's about being a human connection. It's about knowing you a little bit more than some of us are comfortable with. So I'm a shy person. When it comes down to doing this kind of way, and certainly when it comes into walking up to people and shaking their hand, in the old days, I'm a shy person. I don't do that easily. And yet you need to somehow build those connections. So that's what today is about. This is an absolutely excellent journal article, and I have put it up for you in the handouts. So really, it will tell you all the details that I can't get to in these 45 minutes. So now that we're talking, so then there's mentoring and a lot of work. If you look at the literature, we're going to see things on mentoring. We're going to see things on jobs. And really, there's only small differences between them. So when I'm looking for a mentor, I'm looking for someone who's been there, done it, can help me get there. Probably it's a longer term relationship, and I'm going to ask them for more help than maybe just a reference. But this guideline, we first need to reflect on what we need. Then we need to establish a framework for how we're going to go forward. Then we need to maintain that ongoing stuff so that the maintenance of whatever that framework is works. And then we move ahead. I think this is a good stepping stones. So I said, what would this be like? How would I mind map this idea? And I'm going to share screens. Bear with me when I change that. So I looked for, I don't know if you have your mind mapping tools and you use them all the time. I am not a big mind mapper, and so I'm always looking for what's going to be the easiest possible tools.
Has been disconnected.
Easiest possible tools for mind mapping. This may jump around a little. It looks like it was having trouble connecting with the screen, but it'll come back. So I went to mindomo.com, and I liked them. I took their free thing, and what I liked about it was this one already set up for me for CVs, for figuring out what I wanted to put on a CV. And I thought that made sense as a beginning, because when we're building networks, we're in the same form of our lives as when we're building a CV. Who do I know? What have I done? How do I tell the people about what I've done? There's similar frames of mind for reflection. So I took their CV basic skills, and the ones on the left, I changed slightly to work through the considerations I would have on building a network. And so it said job references, and I thought, okay, who knows me? Because I can build a network out of their networks. If I know, who do I know? Who are they likely to know? And who would they recommend that I should know? So I put down some names. Had something for hobbies. I didn't think that there was a direct one-to-one on that one, so I left it blank. But then it got into skills, and I added, and who can attest to the fact that I have them? So I have teaching skills, and I outlined them. And then I put also on the same line where someone would go to see me in those skills. So right away, building a network requires, in today's world, that we have some things in the can, some YouTubes, some Instagrams, some pictures, some whatever, some CVs, some words up on LinkedIn, some articles up on LinkedIn, things that people can go find about us that show the quality of our work, that we can then link to when we introduce ourselves. So I spent a little time working on what those might be and where they might find me. And then I spent some time on the skills that I have that might make me different from other people who would have a similar CV in other ways, and where, again, they could see those skills in action. So for you, this might work out to be other things, but I thought pretty good way to help me reflect. Because a problem with reflection is if we just ask ourselves a question, we just give ourselves the answer we already know. So the prompt needs to be questions we haven't asked. And this one broke it into skills, soft skills, other skills. Again, these are prompts. And then down here, it had professional development. And that made me say, all of you are using tools that have an opportunity for you to get an endorsement from our company. So if you are not, when you sign in to the pd.education site, don't ignore that column that says badges and endorsements. Because for doing 7 hours of this, and I see some of your names all the time, you can fill out a spreadsheet, tell us why you attended those things, what you got out of those things that you attended. And I am happy to write a letter to a future employer saying, look at this person. This person goes out of their way to do more than is commonly expected of them. That's a trait that everybody wants to work with. So that you could have professional development, things you've done for other people as well. But since you're coming to this particular professional development system, considering filling out one of those spreadsheets, which are up on the website, and asking us for an endorsement, I'd be very happy to give you one. All right, that was the left-hand side of this. When I move it to the right-hand side, I got into really the nuts and bolts of, if I am building a network, who do I need to contact to say hello? And that'll carry us through the rest of the conversation. So what contacts do I need with organizations? For you, are you familiar with the fact that every research organization that I've ever been involved with has special interest groups, SIGs, and those SIGs are people who have interests similar to yours. So go look at the professional organizations, especially the research organizations, and go find out what special interest groups they have and introduce yourself to those people. And introduce yourself not as somebody who, and I'll get more into this in a minute, but not as somebody who wants something from them all the time, but somebody who understands the quid pro quo of relationships. Same thing for your institutions. You have spent money on a master's and some of you on a doctoral. 2 institutions may be there. They have alumni organizations. They want money from you at some point about that. What do they offer? What kind of networks do they have set up? Are there people you want to talk to who are alums of that institution? And would they be willing to be the middleman to introduce you? And then contact searches. So what organizations out there attract the kind of people you want to talk to with the kind of roles you want to have at the kind of jobs you want to have? And then how would membership help you? Or do they have internships? Or do they have things they need from people that you could help with and you could get to know people? So this is the essence of building a network, one person to another. I'm going to go back to my slides. Always scary to see yourself so big on the screen. Okay, here we go. So once again, I've put on this slide, and they're in the handouts, the mind map that I was using. And I don't know if that's a specific to mine, but it was the CV, build a CV from this company. So this is the way it used to be done. And I don't know if the new way is easier. For some of us, it may be, because this way was always really hard for me. And I never left feeling like rarely did I leave feeling like I had made the most of the evening. Now it takes more planning. So let's look into that. Starts with a LinkedIn profile. If you haven't updated it, if you haven't looked at it, if you haven't looked at your contacts, What I find about LinkedIn is that a lot of people come to me for contacts like I'm a potential customer, and I typically turn them down. Although if you looked at my contacts, I probably have way too many of them. But if any of you were to come to my LinkedIn, especially with a notice, something, if so, I'm assuming that if you're looking for academic work, it'll be people with my qualifications and different jobs that you might be wanting to connect with. So what do? You do a couple of things. Once, you need to have a signature on your email that shows off who you are. You need to have links on that signature that send. So if I got an email from you and you were saying, hello, Dr. James, I've read your book on action research and I'm doing that kind of research and I have a few questions for you. Um, and then you signed it. I would look at that link before I just determined how much. If you come to me and you know that I've written books and you know that I'm doing the work that I'm doing, if you have any particular knowledge that links into knowing what I am interested in at all, I will respond to you. How much time I'm going to give you, though, how much time I'm going to offer you, depends upon how easy you make it to me that I can learn to know you a little better. So links on your email signature, and drop dead easy way. Once you've built the introduction videos and you put them up on YouTube channel and you've gotten the links and you put them together. Another thing that's a basic is to show up and play fully. And what I mean by that is push yourself beyond your comfort zone to be your truest self in this arena. And I don't mean put on a false hood about how good you are. I don't look at it that way. I look at it more about be your true self, strong and vulnerable. And then show up at things and have conversations. So if you're in an online gathering and somebody said something particularly interesting, see if you can figure that out and who they are and how you can get back to them. Maybe you can have a private chat. Can I have your email? You just said something interesting. I'd like to follow up. You might have student gatherings for your university. Absolutely go to those. Absolutely get good at networking at whatever those look like. Use them as practice. I've gone to lots of training on networking because it's not easy for me. But one of the things in the old days was, do you have your business cards with you? Well, what translates into our business cards today? Again, it's that signature on an email. It's that ability to send out an email saying, saw you on something. If you are not a member of academia.edu or ResearchGate or other organizations for your particular field, you need to be. And ResearchGate, for any of you doing any kind of research in any kind of field, probably has a ton of things for you. So join the academically oriented social networks. Those two are the biggest. I've mentioned SIGs, special interest groups, at research conferences. Because almost all conferences are online, so are their special interest group. Probably you can go find the person who is head of that special interest group and their email, and that can get you started. And if your university is doing 3MT competitions, 3-minute thesis competitions, you should absolutely do that. And you should absolutely, if you are a researcher, do your own 3-minute thesis, put it up on YouTube, make the practice. Even if your university isn't doing it, that's a great 3-minute video to show everybody who you are and what you care about passionately. So that's show up and play fully. Build a series of online links that show off your work and then use them. So as I said, do a video. Blogs. LinkedIn is particularly good about, you can write a mini article on something and put it up. If you are doing research and you're writing your lit review, put a mini review of literature up. other things that people can see that you can have the link to, and you can put them on kind of a rotating uh, evolution of your signature. You can have more than one signature easily. You can have, I'm sure many of you have more than one email. Each email can have its own signature. You can use them for different characteristics. And all of this amounts to what the people who have special software for this called building a portfolio. And all of it also is a ability to repurpose. So if you write an article for a class that you particularly like, can you cut it down and make it a blog or make it a LinkedIn thing? Can you do something else with it? In today's electronic world, we all need to get really good at a small amount of work equals 2 or 3 things rather than just one, because each of these, especially when we have to edit and revise them, takes a lot of time. But all of this is only going to get you in the door unless you have reflected on what you have to offer them. And I understand, and it's maybe the reason that I have difficulty with this, is I face a group of people who may be only tangentially interested in what I am interested in. So what do I have to offer them? And I think too infrequently, I think about it in terms of me as a person helping them as a person. So what skills do you have to offer them, and what would be that relationship? In an online setting, if you are someone's advocate, they will notice. So if you followed me on LinkedIn and every time I posted something, you upvoted it or commented on it or did something, within a while, I would start to notice that, because LinkedIn would tell me, oh, and that would be, wow, that name keeps showing up again. Then when an email came in with your name on it, there's a better chance that I'm going to put all those pieces together and say, this is someone who has cared about what I do. If you are looking to attract a network of people who publish, if they write books and the books are on Amazon, review the book. If they are, if they publish, see if you can write LinkedIn things that say, just read this great publication, and give the citation. That's a huge way to introduce yourself subtly. So it may be that you have people in your life who are substantive authors, and you aren't thinking about them as your network. I'm encouraging you to think about that, and then think about how you might tell the world how much you like them prior to reaching out to them to say, I'd really like to talk to you about. And if you're, by all means, if you are doing research in the methodology that they use or the topic area that they are fond of, do not hesitate to reach out. Researcher to researcher conversations are great fun. And I've had a few over time, and I'm always welcome for them. Cite and reference. I've cited, to open up a conversation by saying, I cite and reference this thing that you did all the time because I really liked this about it. And now, da da da. Okay, now the whole truth about this work, and I see it, is that I'm a busy person, you're a busy person, and it takes time to do this. And so we only probably keep coming back to it infrequently over time. It's episodic. Unless we are out of work and this is all we have to do, we don't do a good job of this, most of us. So how do I go about doing that? Well, when COVID started, I upgraded our company page on LinkedIn. And for a while, I was very good because I wanted to make sure people knew we had free things that would help students who were struggling. The student struggling issue kind of eased out as universities caught up with that and not so much need for that. but that university page still has more going on than it did, and now it gets used differently. Occasionally, I remember to ask people if they want to look at that university page. It's, it's difficult. It takes a lot of time. It's going to be the same for you. So the more you plan the connections you want to the biggest possible payoff, the better. Practice on some closer to home that are easier to do, and then have in mind, again, going back to this reflection, what do I want? Where do I want to be in 6 to 8 months? And backwards mapping on that. Say I want a job in 6 to 8 months. I want to work for maybe these 2 or 3 places. Could be universities. Could be, for some of you, you want to have graduated and have a postdoc. You want your postdoc to be at some universities. Whatever it is for you. And then backwards map. That means I need to know somebody at those universities in my field. So I better now figure out who those people are and go find them on LinkedIn and see if they're there. Go find them on ResearchGate, see if they're there. Begin to do this work now, and 6 months is not so daunting. Because if you did a little bit of it every couple of weeks, you'd get there. Okay, I'm hoping this is aggravating enough that you have some questions coming up. So before we go on to, yeah, my timing is good. I want to show you this video. So I'm a Wall Street Journal is where I get my news, because I find it to be not politically biased. It's or its bias is about business being a good thing rather than about all the political. So it keeps me in touch with what is happening in the world, but cuts out a lot of the things that I find are overly biased information and annoy me. So in that, this fall,
in this practical,
advice-oriented, I have to stop for a second. They had a job summit, which I attended, thinking about all of you. This particular man is stunning, and it's about 10 minutes, I think 7 to 10 minutes, this video. And so sit back and just enjoy some of what I felt were the most spot on suggestions I had heard in a long time.
Oriented session. Remember, we're focused on advice oriented. All right. So everyone, we want you to have takeaways from what we're going to be talking about today. One of the experts that we have is Ian Siegel. He is co-founder and CEO of ZipRecruiter. A little bit about Ian. He co-founded the company in 2010, and every year, millions of job seekers find employment using ZipRecruiter, and millions of employers use the site to find qualified candidates. I'll be your host, walking you through today's session. My name is Bodhi Atway. I'm a technology news editor at the Wall Street Journal. And hopefully you guys, again, get some really, really sharp takeaways from today's session. In terms of following the job markets and trends, Ian follows this stuff every day. And one of the things that we're going to do, we're going to kick it off with a few questions that I'm going to ask him, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. If you have questions, obviously one way to do it is to submit them through the StreamYard service, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So hang with us for the next 45 minutes, and we'll have a great conversation. So Ian, talk to us. Like, what are some of the biggest things that have changed in the job market between the period before COVID and after? Because it's almost like two different worlds from before March 2020 to now.
Yeah, well, first let me say, delighted to be here. Happy to be answering these questions. And to answer the first question, when you look at the 10 years that preceded COVID, you are looking at a golden age for job seekers. And in particular, the last 5 years, we saw unemployment move from over 10% down to under 4%. And employers were creating jobs and searching for talent at a frantic rate. And so it was the greatest time ever to go not only find a job and or switch jobs in order to increase your compensation. We get to March, COVID hits, and immediately the hiring market collapses 75%. Not only are millions of jobs taken out of the economy, but many of those jobs are permanently removed. There are over 32 million people who are now out of work and or underemployed, meaning they only work part-time. And so suddenly you flipped from what was a golden age for job seekers and a job seeker market very hard and very fast into what is definitively an employer advantage market. So if you are a job seeker looking for work, suddenly you're facing the stiffest competition that we've seen in a decade for less jobs than we've seen in a decade.
So with that, understanding that things changed and the job market is different. So, what you teed up is that employers obviously have a lot of advantage in terms of there's a lot of people who are looking for opportunities. So what are some ways that people can stand out? Because if you've said, okay, 32 million people are out of work, that doesn't even count the people who may be looking to switch jobs, whether, for personal reasons or just looking for a different professional opportunity. So what are some ways that, most of us, if we're not essential or even essential workers who have gone back to the office, we're working remotely a lot more. So what tools are out there that, people can use to just give them a leg up or even a way in?
Well, the first thing I'm going to tell everybody is there's a really interesting dynamic playing out right now. So if you really want to give yourself a leg up, the thing to do, and this sounds so obvious, you're going to say, why is Ian even saying this is a piece of advice? Start your job search immediately. So March hits, 75% reduction in the number of new jobs being posted, effectively hiring collapses in the country. But roughly 5 to 6 weeks later, we saw a steady and persistent rebound and recovery. So jobs have been coming in at an ever accelerating rate. And in fact, in August, we saw the single biggest jump in new jobs created since March. So there was an 18% lift in the number of jobs available. And then this is the fascinating part. And this is where I'm telling you, just go search for a job right now if you want an advantage. For whatever reason, there is 20% less job search activity right now than there was in January, February, March. So there's 32 million people who are either unemployed or underemployed, meaning that there is certainly a high demand for people who should be looking for work. And for some reason, they're not looking. It could be because of the federal stimulus. It could be because of fear of the disease. But right now, you're actually in a, oddly enough, advantaged position if you just start your job search immediately.
So where should people go? Now, a lot of employers, we always hear word of mouth is still important, but a lot of employers, they're putting job posts everywhere. You might see it on LinkedIn. You might see it, hopefully you see it in the newspaper, maybe. You might see it on Twitter. You might see something on Facebook. So like, where do people go? Like in terms of the tools, like where should people be looking?
Well, with no disrespect to the newspaper, I will say there's 3 sites you should use if you really want to get the comprehensive view of all the jobs that are available. The first and most obvious is LinkedIn. You definitely want to be on social networking. Knowing somebody at a company and having them reference you in is absolutely the best way to go into a company. So if you haven't created a LinkedIn profile and you haven't looked at your connections in a while, this is the time to go polish that up. Next up, there's a site called Indeed. They say they're all the jobs in one place. They really are the closest thing to an aggregate of all the jobs that are available across the web. So that's a great place to go and do the search yourself. It's sort of a do-it-yourself approach to searching for work. And then finally, of course, there's ZipRecruiter. We're a little bit different in that on ZipRecruiter, you can search for work. But one of the things that stands out there is that we, on our site, employers will try to recruit you. So LinkedIn for social networking, Indeed to do job search, and then go to ZipRecruiter if you want to get recruited by employers.
So we're staying true to the heart of what we want to talk about today. Actually, doing the interview. So wherever you found the search, let's say people got in, right? They got in, they said, hey, we're going to talk to you. So what are the key differences that people need to understand beyond just technology, right? Like having a good internet connection, but like, what are some things that people need to do or do differently when they're on a video interview versus in person?
Well, interestingly enough, I will take the position that video interviewing is a huge advantage if you actually get to the interview stage. And the reason I say that is there are multiple studies that show employers who are interviewing you make a decision or a judgment about you in less than 1 second. So they come to a conclusion really fast, and then it's very difficult to move them off of whatever their initial conclusion is. And there's a bunch of subtle cues that they're using in order to make that determination. Your job when you do a video interview is to take 100% control of that first second. That means you're going to think about your camera angle. You're going to think about your lighting. You're going to have taken a little bit more time to groom yourself. You are going to make sure you are leaning forward in your chair and you appear interested. Ideally, you're going to start the interview by smiling. There are all these small cues that you can send to somebody to show them that you're excited to be there, that you're alert, and that you're paying attention. That is the number one piece of advice I have for you, which is how you come on the screen is as important as anything you say afterwards. And the great thing about video interviewing is you suddenly have 100% control.
So you're saying that, rethinking it's more than, going to an interview. It's not just the suit or just making sure your look in, like, when you're making the first impression is there. You're saying, you talked about lighting, you talked about equipment. So you're talking about, like, if you're going to do a video interview, you're talking about having a setup. So how, in terms of, so you're recommending that people invest in equipment to help support their job search, right?
Well, I don't want you to go out and buy a professional camera and mount it. I don't need you to go buy a backdrop and or pay money for a virtual backdrop. Here's what I want you to do. Put the camera on yourself before you start the interview and then look at what they see, not just your face, but behind you. Are you in a cluttered room? Is there an unmade bed behind you? Everything you show them will create a subconscious bias on the part of the interviewer. And this is your opportunity to control every part of that first impression. There are many other things you should do when you're on this video interview, but by far and away the most important is you should come in prepared. Another great tip that I have for people who are video interviewing is one of the things that people love is being listened to. It's a really good idea to have a pad and a pen, and as they're speaking to you, be visibly writing things down. Your goal is to appear excited, and your goal is to appear like you are listening to what they say. There's no better signal than writing things down as they speak.
So in terms of the exchange, how much effort do people, so I'm just thinking for folks who might be introverts or people who just aren't necessarily comfortable in these types of settings, stage fright, performance anxiety, whatever you want to call it, or just discomfort with this process. What are some things that people who might not naturally just kind of be gregarious or outgoing, like what are some things that maybe they need to do? Because I can imagine on a video interview, it can be, you want people to engage and you don't want people with flat affects or anything like that. But what are some things that, people who just might not be naturally inclined to be outgoing to help their personality show, so that they could actually get to advance or get to the next stage?
All right, I love this question. I'm going to give you my number one interview hack. This is like a guaranteed way to start the interview on the right foot, get the interviewer excited about you, and to make sure that you're in a natural conversation. Ready? I want you to start the interview with this sentence. Write this sentence down. I'm so excited to be here because fill in the blank something specific. I'm so excited to be here because I went on Glassdoor and I read the reviews of your company and I love your company culture. I'm so excited to be here because I've been a user of your product for years and I can't believe I get the opportunity to interview and potentially work with you. I'm so excited to be here because I have so many ideas for how we can take your product to the next level and I've been dying to talk to you about them. Prepare that one sentence and the rest will be so much easier for you. But 50% of attraction, whether you're in dating or you're in recruiting, starts with somebody expressing interest. This is not a time to be reserved. This is a time to be enthusiastic and to go first and to take a chance and be vulnerable and say, like, I love your company. That is the best possible way you can start an interview. Use that sentence.
It's fascinating. So hopefully, I know we've been talking for close to 15 minutes. So hopefully there's some questions that might be teed up. Hopefully Ian kind of got the juices flowing, and hopefully there's some things that that folks may want to ask about. So it's interesting that you make the dating allegory, because there's like, or analogy, I should say, but because there's a lot of, we're thinking about presentation and things like that. Is there any, should people take different tactics if they have to do multiple interviews with the same employer, or is it okay to, kind of like, if you'd get a second interview with the same company, is there anything that folks should do differently, or is there something new that folks should bring to the table, like beyond, what is there anything that people can do to help themselves, again, if not only if you get past stage one, is there anything more people can do once they get there?
Well, if you're looking to give yourself an edge, whether it's in the first interview or if you get called back for a second interview, again, I have one of the most obvious pieces of advice. And again, it fits both dating and recruiting, which is you want to do your research ahead of time, because a great interview is a dialogue. And in a great interview, you nailed it if you're spending less time talking about yourself and more time talking about them and their business. That may sound counterintuitive because you're there to sell yourself. The best way to sell yourself is to show, not tell. And what that means is if you've done some research, you can start a conversation with them about their product, their business, or their service. And if you're having a dialogue about that, they're getting a sense of what it's like to work with you. That's the best possible technique you can use for any interview. It does require upfront preparation. So few people take the time to do that preparation that it's literally the second best thing you can do to give yourself an advantage when you're in this market, after obviously just actually looking for work and applying to jobs.
Like, that was such an obvious blend with what we were talking about today. That everything he said, I really appreciated this leaning forward, the being excited, the all of those things. And also I liked that we have more control in this environment. So for any of us who are feeling like, oh, it's harder now because I can't just go see them, or I can't pick up the phone, or we were used to, we felt good about the way people used to be able to meet and interact compared to a remote session. I felt like all of those things could be helpful. So I hope you thought, I hope you felt so too. www.wooclap. Oh, I really spelled it wrong on the screen. It's wooclap, wooclap.com/grad excellence. And I have one question. As some of you are also typing questions, let me just real quick say there's a lot coming up. If you or anybody you know is having a difficulty with anxiety, our grad support community is going to take a look at anxiety, which means just 15-20 minutes on an overview of anxiety, and then let people ask questions and give each other comments and help things that have happened. So if anxiety is something in your life, please come along, especially if you've dealt with it and you've been helpful. This would be a place you could be helpful to others. We have also a with data thesis design community this week. So if you have your data, you're looking to finish, you want to come up. Those both have wooclap for grad support. If you want to ask a question, is wooclap.com/grad support. And not surprising, for the with data, it's wooclap.com/with data. So you can go ahead and put your questions in, even if you can't attend. You can register and then you'll get the recording. Communication with those who have power over your work. It was a great session about supervisors and people in labs and other people that have power, that sometimes communication can break down. It's a pre-recorded session, but it runs at a particular time. We're doing a series of 15-minute, I talk about my work as a researcher, how I put my ideas together, how the tools I use, how they interact, and people ask questions. We have had 2 sessions that you can go look up the recordings. And this next week, we're going to look at lit, how to take a conceptual map and upgrade lit to the modern level. What makes writing hard and how to move past it is the week after. And then I just want to say, scavenger hunt, if you haven't done it, we have 30-minute sessions. We have 17 30-minute sessions with a PhD advisor / editor that are going for first prizes, and people haven't won them yet. So go ahead and finish your PD and education scavenger hunt. And then also, that's where you click if you might be interested in an endorsement from us. Okay, back to questions. And I'll just move over to my screen share. So if you see them come in, you can. So this will show you what I'm looking at. wooclap.com/grad excellence. My field has been hit very hard by COVID, United States museum field and academia.
Your screen sharing has been disconnected.
So I feel bad about asking others for help if they just lost their jobs. How do I work with this? I think the biggest thing for us always is to not make assumptions.
Has been disconnected.
And that's going back and forth on screen sharing, but is to not make assumptions about other people. Sometimes when we're in a really bad state, what helps us most is the ability to help somebody else. So it depends really on what you want to ask. And yeah, life is hard. And sometimes when things are hard, I'm going to stop screen sharing because it just keeps bouncing around, doesn't it? We'll give it one more try. When things are hard, sometimes it's nice to pull together and work together to get past things. Maybe you have ways you can help. Maybe we're all in this together and we're looking for similar things. So you might be looking for a job in academia. They might be looking for a job in museums, or they might not have lost their job. They might be cut back on part-time. There might be writing things that everybody can do together. There might be. So how do we build a network? How do we build a community in our networks? I think that's what I'm really trying to get to answer this question, is not making assumptions about who they are and who you are, but reaching out as one human being to another, saying, these things just got tougher. Maybe there are ways we can help each other. Maybe there are ways this network or this special interest group can, if nothing else, keep our heads on straight. And I'll just use as an example, when people face life-threatening illnesses, they typically bond together in groups because other people sharing their story and what they're doing helps people get ideas. So maybe it's our time if we are working in a field like this person is, that has been hit quite a bit, and yeah, museums, absolutely. Maybe there's a time for people to come together in a Zoom meeting and just talk about it. And maybe somebody can have has a Zoom account and can offer that. And maybe somebody else can offer something else. So maybe the outreach is, I'm doing this. I'm wondering if, because of the times, there would be any interest out there for others to come together and talk if you're interested at all. Here's a link to a Zoom meeting and see who shows up. That might be the seed that gets you started. What if my background is not pristine? It really, I guess part of it depends upon what you're trying to go for. But at my age, I would say none of our backgrounds are pristine anymore. Uh, uh, and one of the things that somebody told me that I think is so totally true is that people want to work with other people. So when they go to an interview, one of the things they're thinking about in their head is, can I work with this person? I'm a proponent of warts and all. If I'm comfortable, if people are comfortable working with me, people, things happen. Some of us are good at some things, some of us are good at others. I'm stellar at some stuff, and I'm not so good with typing faster than I can write and spelling mistakes. You may have noticed in a slide or two. It happens. Uh, if we I prefer to work with people who are really good at some things and know that they are good at those things and also can be not pristine. So I guess it depends on who you're looking for and what your case is. If you're looking for top tier, there is within many top tier organizations this very difficult to manage sense that all of us need to be pristine. And those are also organizations that have a lot of anxiety. Uh, if if that's where you want to play, then you buckle down on anything that isn't pristine, and you absolutely work with everything to make it as tight as you can get it. So that means you do extra professional development. You write more articles. You get published in more places. You have put yourself out there in ways that no one can question, and then you become comfortable. Um, and you can get to other places that aren't pristine, and you can work your way up. If the person's writing this is writing it for academia, then publication is what is the fastest way to get you there. I wrote books. One of the reasons I wrote books was I was given the opportunity to write books because of my research that was what I did for my doctorate. But I jumped on that opportunity, and I have continued to jump on those opportunities because my background goes kind of up and down. I've done different things, but nobody can question the level of research and writing that I've done. So that's a nice platform to step out on. I hope that's helpful. Does anybody else have any questions? Let me see if anything has come in the chat. I'm glad the anxiety workshop can be helpful. Excellent. Thank you for that. And thank you also for saying that options, we spend a lot of time trying to cobble together things that are helpful to you. So I definitely appreciate when people say it will be helpful. It lifts the heart when we've done all the hard work we've done. And Erica says that most things are forgivable or acceptable if you are open and upfront. I totally agree. Damage control is easy. Even one of those mistakes, it's just you're mortified. You just can't believe that email went out to everybody when it was only supposed to go out to a finite number of people. Whatever it is, you can start a sentence saying, I am mortified, but this thing just happened. And it backs people off from being judgmental. That's the nice thing about just being people together. So how else can I help? Was networking. Please, if it's useful to you, if what I do is useful to you, if there's anything, include us in your network. If you don't know, always start with the place you wish what would your dream job be? Where would your dream faculty be and who's researching what you're researching there? The person who said COVID in museum field and academia. Do you know all the universities that might be just the right one? Maybe there's some people there who you can have research conversations with and get to know them, and then those research conversations can be the stepping stone. Do you offer how to interview assistance, webinar or one-to-one? I keep bombing my first interviews. Yeah, we can do that. We do editing and all those kinds of things as it's a paid for service, but you may have seen Dr. Stephanie Galindo, who she's done a couple of later on Monday webinars for us. She's coming up. She has some time. We can talk about that. So the way to get, and there are some webinars. Before that, there are some webinars, of course. If you go to the pd.education site and you look on the My To-Do list, there is this one. I thought that man was very good. And then there is the one that we did on presentations and 3MTs. Make sure you've seen what we already have. Do a web search and look for interview things and watch some of those YouTube videos, and then come to us and pay for half an hour and set us up like you are. We put us in a role, and then come in and tell us what questions you've been asked. Tell us what the situation was. Role playing is always a good thing, and I'm sure Stephanie would be happy to help you with that. She and I can work on it if you're interested. Good. I think we're a couple minutes over. If anybody else has another question, type it in quickly. Put your hand up if you have another question for us. Otherwise, I'll begin the saying goodbye process. It's always good to see you, and we look for other things. Let me just make sure you have the link. Easiest, fastest way to sign up for things that we are doing to overview it all is to go to, let's see if it pastes. It didn't paste properly, of course not. Let me copy it this way. You're very welcome. Happy to be here, happy to be of assistance. That's the link you can go to, and you can sign up for the other things that are coming up, which I will be very good and leave this on the screen. And with that, I will end the recording, say goodbye to all of you for now. In just a second, it will kick you out. But in the meantime, we look forward to seeing you another time. Thank you for that. Promoting us to class.